Join me as I casually read The Coldest Winter Ever by Sister Soldier. There are triggers in this book that may involve essay, it may involve issues with children, addiction, and much more. If you are under the age 18, this is not for you. Everybody else, please subscribe, turn on your notifications so you will be informed the next time I upload a video. Without any further ado, let's get into it. The Coldest Winter Ever, Chapter 20. 2,555 days later, I checked the calendar on my wall. I had 2,920 days left to serve on a mandatory 15-year prison sentence. But this particular day was special. What made this day special was simply that it would be different than the rest. In 15 minutes, I would be walking out of this cell, down the corridor, and out the doors to attend my mother's funeral. She had died suddenly, whatever that means, because she was dying all along. Some type of blood clot to the brain. And since mothers are so important, I was about to enjoy the only legitimate method of leaving this institution before a prisoner's time is served. Of course, I would be chained at the feet and at the wrists. I would be escorted around like a preschooler. I would be returned to this cell within hours. Then the routine would resume. But at the age of 25 in the 21st century, a small trip to the graveyard was about as much excitement as I was going to get. Because I was going to get a few hours outside of these walls, I was like a superstar. Everybody in here wanted me to be sure to tell them everything, and everybody I saw outside as soon as I returned. Other than people's relatives, there was no real way for us to know what was going on outside. Even relatives were hard to come by. Who really wants to take an almost 8-hour trek out to this joint, which damn near sits in Canada? In my 7 years served, I never received one visit. I had to work several hustles to keep my commissary in livable condition. Then, of course, there were always the suckers who could be shook down if things got too bleak. Fighting didn't mean nothing to me now. There was no nervousness or nothing. I just did whatever was necessary. There ain't no special clothes or fashion in here. When I first came, I tried to make myself stand out the way I always did. But after a while, you'd figure, what the FK for? You can't get no DCK, I don't want no side. There's no one to impress here except those broke-down broads. Every now and then, I do hair for cigarettes or stamps or cookies. Most of the time, I keep my own hair braided. It's so long that bitches get jealous. I have to braid it, then roll it up and tuck the ends under just not to have extra beef. But me, Natalie, Zakia, Shantae, and a bunch of Brooklyn girls got a crew up in here. We got a little name for ourselves. Even Simone's trying to be down with us for her own protection. She finally stopped blaming me for the death of her daughter. Or at least she puts up a good front. But that's how it goes in here. There's all kinds of strange alliances. Everybody got drug-related charges stemming from their own little situations. But we wasn't nothing but the girlfriends to ningas moving weight. Sometimes when we be playing cards and listening to the radio, it's almost like we at home. I got enough family and friends on the inside. That's why I don't get no visits. Everybody's already here. As far as mail goes, I get letters from Santiago, that's it. We just always going to be close like that. I still got the letters from that wild day in Brooklyn. That day plays over and over in my head. I calculated about 263 what-ifs. What if I had done this? What if it done that? What really blew my mind was finally reading Santiago's letters while I was in the holding cell the night of my arrest. He admitted killing 2 dudes in prison. Both of them was my mother's brothers, who used to work for him. But he broke it down so I could understand it. He just had a justifiable hatred for weak men, said there is nothing worse than a snitch. He told me he knew he was never coming home. He was right. It turned out he got 2 consecutive life sentences, with no chance of parole. The crazy shit was he gave me Dulce Tristament's phone number in those letters. He told me to call her because he didn't want any more money wasted on his trial. He instructed her that I would be calling. She was to meet me and hand over $50,000. There was only one condition. I had to get my mother and place her in a rehab. He even gave me the name of the place. That's what he had wanted Midnight to take care of. After collecting the money, I had to promise to take care of my mom's after she came out of the rehab. But I wasn't supposed to mention to Dulce what I was going to do with the cash. I called that bitch Dulce collect from the jailhouse. Once she found out I was incarcerated, she changed her phone number and never passed off the money. That hoe was living lovely. If she was supposed to give me $50,000, imagine how much she had stashed for herself. That's neither here or there. I don't even think of getting out. I take one day at a time the 8 years I have left. I cross out each day as I survive it. I know I'm not guaranteed to see the next day or the outside ever again. It's not like I miss anybody other than Daddy anyway. 2 guards came to get me. Santiago, let's go. Keep it moving. I walked on the right side of the corridor, on the inside of the white line, the way we were trained to do. They took me into a room I had been in hundreds of times before. I stripped naked. Naked wasn't nothing to me. I'd done seen thousands of breasts and hundreds of asses by this time. It was almost the same as seeing somebody fully clothed. In the beginning, I would try to cover myself up, but surprise searches in the middle of the night would have 60 chicks standing side by side, butt naked, then squatting for a rectal inspection. We are naked in the wallless shower. Naked in the being naked, naked, naked. It meant nothing. Dressed in a jail jumpsuit and an army jacket, with an officer in front of me and an officer in back of me, I proceeded down the hallway and out of a series of automated doors. My prison number was checked and rechecked at each checkpoint, as if they didn't know who I was already. Hell, I'm here every day. Once outside of the building, I was placed in a van with bars in the windows and driven across the facility field, where snipers and officers were stationed every couple of yards, 24 hours a day. When we passed the last checkpoint, my way of breathing changed. It might be hard to believe, but the air in prison is different. There's like 1,000 people sucking on the one little piece of fresh air until it turns stale. Then all you suck in is recycled oxygen and bad breath. In the van, I could feel the breeze. I could even smell the trees, the sap, and the flowers in the spring air as we drove down the road, headed to the airport. I stuck my face up against the window bars. The sun in my face was a luxury. Because of the way my cell was situated in the building, I rarely got any sunlight. The airplane offered more magazine selections than we were entitled to inside. The officers, who pretty much know my style, were relaxed. They had no reason not to be. I was chained to my airline seat. I peeped people trying to glance over at me. It wasn't easy for them to get a good view because I was seated in the middle chair, in between 2 guards. I looked right back at them, though. I was checking out shoes, watches, jewelry, dresses, just so I could tell the girls on the inside what was up. When food time came, I got filled up on the aroma alone. 3 choices of food were offered. That's 2 more choices than I'm used to having. My nose was so keen now I knew what they were serving before the stewardess read off the selections. When we got to the city, I was placed in a prison vehicle. New York street sounds brought back memories of so many things. Mostly memories of freedom. Being able to go to the store or the movies. Getting feeked in a parked car by the river or in the grass or on the back stairs. My eyes checked the cars, the updated series and models. I noticed new hairdos, new buildings that weren't there before. As I rode in the back of one of those prison vehicles, the car with the metal gates separating the officers from the convicts, I saw people looking. It seemed like they were wondering what I did. I wanted to tell them nothing. I didn't do shit. I'm doing 15 years for having a bad attitude. That's what it boils down to. Sure, I rented a car that was being used to transport guns and cocaine. But they wasn't my drugs, they wasn't my guns. But since I was sitting in the car I rented, with the stuff concealed inside the teddy bears in the back seat, they considered me guilty. I'm a conspirator for renting the apartment me and Bullet lived in. I'm a conspirator because guns discovered had bodies on them, people I didn't kill. Some of them I didn't even know. Now, you tell me, how can I be involved in a conspiracy when nobody else involved in the conspiracy was convicted of nothing? They wanted Bullet, but I wouldn't help them. The name is Santiago. We don't snitch. Besides, even if I was a rat, it wouldn't matter. That nigga Bullet had it all figured out. His name wasn't on nothing. He wasn't caught doing nothing. Joey the doorman disappeared before the cops could get to him. There was nobody to testify against him about shit. When Natalie got sent up here 1 year after me, for just riding in a car with a ninga with contraband, she told me the deal with Bullet. Now he has a bootleg tape business. He got all the rappers shook, be stealing their music and selling it on the streets before the record companies could. He's got a legit record store that he sells the tapes out of, and he's paid out the ass. The graveyard was located in Queens. When we pulled up, all I could see were the backs of about 4 men. As we came into closer range, I saw that 3 of the men were armed and wearing bulletproof vests. The 2 officers with me greeted the 3 officers with Santiago, my father, who I had not laid eyes on in 8 years. As soon as he turned to greet me, the tears came gushing out of my eyes, after so many years with no tears at all. I couldn't stop them from falling. Santiago gestured slightly like he wanted to hug me, but his hands were chained, and so were mine. "What's up, baby girl?" he asked in a low tone. There was no privacy. Any emotion shared here was a group thing. We were being watched like a motion picture. "Hey, Daddy," I whispered, admiring how handsome he still looked, his tall frame still sturdy, filled out and masculine. "You're beautiful," he said, looking into my face in a concentrated way. I cried more because I knew how hideous the scar on my face was. I had stopped bothering with the mirror about 5 years ago. "Even with the scar," he added, as if he could read my thoughts, "you're still the prettiest girl in the world." The old white priest cleared his throat. All 6 of us, me, Daddy, the guards, stepped up to the open casket to take the last look of Mama we would ever have. When Santiago looked in, he broke down. He broke down so bad he fell to his knees. "Who is that? Who is that in the box?" "That's not my wife." The guards prodded him to stand back up. Both Daddy and me tried to collect ourselves. Seconds later, some more people wandered over to where we were. We didn't know them. We assumed they were looking for another plot. As 2 of the guards moved to inquire, words were exchanged, and they allowed them to pass on to our way. For the first time in many years, I became self-conscious. I felt ugly. I wanted to fix myself. I wanted to rip off these clothes and tear out these braids, comb my hair or something. It was midnight. He was tall, black, and regal. He looked more amazing than I remembered him being. Instantly, I felt jealous of the women with him. It was a piece of me that was dead that was somehow coming to life again. My eyes locked in on their faces for an immediate comparison. It's funny. The girls' faces were familiar, but I could not place them. Then an alarm went off within me. Lexi and Mercedes, the twins, my sisters. They had to be at least 15 years old now. They were so soft and delicate and different. Their eyes were different. Midnight approached Santiago first. He hugged him, which the guards allowed. Then he presented Lexi and Mercedes, like they were strangers in an initial meeting. They talked to Daddy in a formal way, not like daughters. They spoke to me with sympathy and distance in their voices. Everything that needed to be said was not being said. Midnight did most of the talking. Like old times, he reported to Santiago on the status of things. It was about Santiago's daughters. I turned away from them. I didn't want Midnight looking at me. Just as the priest started going through the motions, a big black 600 series Mercedes Benz with black tinted windows pulled up on the pavement. It had been moving at a high speed, so it stopped with an abrupt jerk, alarming the guards who had already assumed the shooting position. They called out for the person to identify himself, but the music coming from the vehicle was so loud, I was sure the people inside could not hear anything else. As the door opened, a model type of girl, straight out of the pages of a high-fashion magazine, stepped out of the car. Dressed in a white Versace slinky dress, odd color for a funeral, and white Dolce & Gabbana leather stilettos. She was obviously paid out the ass. I still couldn't see her face behind the sunglasses. Stepping carefully on the new, soft spring grass, she came right over to me. "What's up, Winter?" She smiled wide and pulled off her sunglasses. It was Portia, my sister. She came alone, pushing a whip it would take the U.S. President's salary to pay for. She hugged me, she kissed Daddy. She waved at Midnight, Lexi, Mercedes, and the two women with him. She stepped up and looked in my mother's coffin for all of 3 seconds. She stepped back, grabbed my arm, and leaned inward to talk privately with me. The guard signaled for her to back up. "Damn," she screamed on the guard. "Can't I talk to my own sister without you being all up my ass?" So they let her talk. I couldn't believe how she chumped them. "I wanted to come and check you, girl," she said, chomping on some bubble gum. "But you was just too far away. Tell me what you need. Whatever it is, I can get it for you." "Whose ficking whip is that?" I asked, amazed. "Buster's," she responded. I raised my eyebrows like, "Who dat?" "It's a long story," she said, waving her hand in the air like it wasn't nothing. "What's up with Lexi and Mercedes?" I asked her almost at a whisper. "Midnight adopted them. They all religious and whatnot. They be wanting to tell somebody how to live they own motherfucking life. That's his wife right there. She ain't all that. I look better than she do." "Who's the other girl?" I asked. "She's his sister. They live out in Maryland. Midnight owns a barber shop. Can you believe it?" she said, chuckling. "So what do you do? Where do you live now?" I asked her cautiously. "Oh, I do a little bit of this, a little bit of that. We stay over there by Central Park in Manhattan," she said casually. "We who?" I asked. "Me and Buster." She said it like I should have known already. Oh, now I took a good look at Portia. She was perfect. Her hair was perfect. Her legs were perfect. Her clothes were perfect. But I wanted to warn her about certain things in life. Usually I'm not at a loss for words, but I didn't feel good enough to tell her what I really thought. I knew what she would think. "Winter, you're just saying that because you're in jail. Winter, you're just saying that because you're old. Winter, you're just saying that because you're ugly. Winter, you're just saying that because you're jealous." So instead of saying what I had learned, what was on the tip of my tongue, I said nothing at all. Hell, I'm not into meddling in other people's business. I definitely don't be making no speeches. Pick it, she'll learn for herself. That's just the way it is. You just completed the final chapter of The Coldest Winter Ever by Sister Soldier. What did you think of this book? Leave it in the comments. If you have any other ideas for books for me to read, put that in the comments as well. Remember to subscribe and share. Thanks for watching. And check out my books. Picking Up the Pieces to 100 Broken Promises can be found on Audible. The workbook and the book can be found in every major bookstore. And check out my gratitude journal, which can be found in any major bookstore as well. But my medical journal is exclusively on Amazon. Take care.